you have to give people an opportunity to evolve and have the right skills and abilities and attitudes and knowledge to be successful. And then we get mad at them when it's like, well, what happened? Right. So, and maybe you don't see that currently, but in your career, have you seen that where sometimes you just get thrown in the deep end?
I see it a ton. We used to, joke a little bit where you would get your badge and you were knighted, right? And now you're off, right? And it's like now that you have that, you're expected to have answers and know exactly where to go and how to get your team there and stuff. So you're 100% right. I think, again, it goes back to the fit. I think the skill set. I think it goes back to also companies um, putting stock in training development. Every place I've been at, you hear that as a crutch, right? Like there's no development here. There's not a ton of training. We get some, right? But again, not at the pace of how we want people to move. So you're 100% right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I always say leadership would be easy if people weren't involved, right? So I mean, so leaders understanding how to work with people, everybody's different, how to meet them where they're at, even moving from peer to leader, right? I mean, at one time, if we were a peer to peer, and now I'm leading that group, I mean, all those dynamics play a role, which you have, over 3 decades have figured out along the way because you were proactive, like you mentioned earlier. You took a lot of initiative to understand those things. But a lot of times leaders are just kind of thrown in there, and it's like, what the hell do I do? Which again, it's almost like unconscious for you, right? You know how to read and react and do those things, but some people, they're still learning these things and they're still learning the ropes. So that's interesting. Let's go to that second piece of that, and we don't need to necessarily get too deep, but I am interested, like, how do you stay level? What are some of the things that you do? Because it's easy to get freaking burnout and kind of lose the way every day with all the noise. So give us some tips or thoughts on things that leaders can do to, stay on the level.
Yeah, that is really a great question, and it's tough because at times, right, we talk, amongst my peers and colleagues, right, I have in the industry and say it can be lonely at the top, right, because there's only so many people you can talk to, and so as you're going through it, it really is about putting the right pieces together, working with your team in collaboration, right, so that you're not just taking on the burden, right? It's really has to be sort of distributed, and then make sure that each component of your business, your operation, right, can take the piece that they have to get them going in the same direction. I get this question all the time. What is the hardest part about your job? Right? And we service, 43 stores. I handle most of the Northeast corridor from Virginia all the way up to Maine in terms of e-com and home delivery and retail space, right? So there's a ton of complex activity. And when I get that question all the time, it's people. It's getting everybody to go in the same direction. And so for me, it's just a ton of collaboration with your leaders, really to break down everything and understand what space they need to be in, what space I need to be in, and being able to identify, I think with my experience, right, and experienced leaders, identify the places where I need to be, spend my time, and where I don't need to be. And so that's a key for me so that you can delegate what you need to, you can coach and mentor, but that you can assess that everybody's going in the same direction, and that there's progress in all the areas that you need. But it comes down to having the right team and be able to use all of your resources collectively. Because again, we always talk about the best leaders. Like, I'm hoping I'm not the smartest guy in the room, right? I want my team to be able to understand, and they're the experts. And then together, right, we can get to the same place.